So today, we're in the dark part of the year, right? It's dark, it's getting darker, moving towards that light. And if you look on your calendars, foreshadow, we're having a winter light celebration here on Wednesday, the 21st, which for those of you that have trouble driving at night, which I know some of you do, we're going to do it both streaming and in the building. So check those things out as a foreshadow. But this dark time of the year, and as we work through the dark time of the year, sometimes, we remember, dark times with us too. And that's part of it. It's working through that darkness. Now, if you see, we don't often put art and shadow in the same sentence, especially if you're talking about things like shadow work. So in your head right now, what do you think about what shadow work means? What does that feel like to you if you say you're going to work with the shadow or you're going to work with the darkness? What does that bring up?
I think we both have a dark side and a light side. And so very frequently we don't like to see the dark in ourselves. So it's when there's a gray saturates in yourself, you make yourself bold.
We're a little bit of both.
That's what she said.
She said that for her, it's that we are a little bit of both, the light and the dark, and working with that dark brings wholeness.
I thought I was a light worker for so many years, and I was trying to push all of it. Like, I would see things were wrong, and I would mention it and stuff, but the scapegoat, right? And this pattern kept happening, and then somebody finally told me, "Well, you're a shadow worker. You're supposed to bring out people's shadows so that they can resolve them." And I'm like, "Gee, thanks."
Same thing. Oh, she said for her, she feels like sometimes instead of a light worker, she's a shadow worker, that she brings the shadow out in people for them to work on that, which isn't always comfortable.
I just want to say, doing shadow work is not for the faint-hearted. For the faint-hearted. And now I do the program. It probably was which is so shaky and unstable with learning all that stuff about myself that I really embrace. It's
Spit it along, so.
She said she used to teach the shadow and being part of that teaching with others, and how much that it even brought up in herself and how uncomfortable it could be. So what you're telling me is sometimes it looks like this, right? But this is what it brings up, something just icky and scary and whatever. And yeah, the definition really is working with our unconscious mind to uncover the parts of ourselves that we repress or hide. So it's not super scary because it's us. We're discovering us. So I'm going to read this to you and then break it apart so you don't have to try, but it's here in case you want to reference. So this is from the book Trauma and the Unbound Body by Judith Blackstone, and she likens shadow work to trauma work. And she says, traumatic events, both big and small, we constrict and fragment our body and withdraw our consciousness from those parts of our body. We organize ourselves in ways that dampen the impact, the intolerable experience, that restrain aspects of our behavior that have brought harm to us. So these constrictions serve the vital purpose of keeping ourselves intact, of not losing our central organizing function that keeps track of ourselves in our environment. They allow us to manage our environment, and so we are not overwhelmed by it, and manage ourselves so we maintain as much as possible the love and approval of our caretakers that we need for own survival and development. So, although our restrictions diminish us and even fragment us, they keep us from shattering. They guard us against the degree of overwhelm that can cause disintegration of our sense of self, of ourselves as existing as a single cohesive person over time. Lots of words, right? Lots of words. In a nutshell, the way our body remembers the emotional parts of what happens to us, right, is a way to protect ourselves. It's a way to manage what's happening in the moment. Gabor Mate, who I should have brought the book to show you. I'll bring it because you're going to hear me say his name a lot lately because I've just been diving into his work. But he talks about an experience in his life when he was very, very young, and he was in the middle of war-torn Europe, right? So his mother gave him to a stranger on the street when he was very, very young, right? And then she didn't see him for weeks after that. In the moment, these two ladies were doing a total act of love. They were saving this little body's life, right? But as a little tiny person, all you recognize is mom just gave me away and took off, right? So this turns in, he said for him, he recognized it later in his life as one of those, quote, shadows that he's dealing with the sense of feeling unworthy and trying to manage his world, or he gets activated or triggered or whatever around certain things that go up against that sense. So in the recognizing it and in the working with this trauma, you recognize that it was a way for survival at the time, you know, to once you see mom again, you do certain things so she doesn't give you away, right? Not really recognizing that the reason you got given away then was so that you didn't get killed, right? So I know that's, and we all have examples like that, maybe not so extreme as what Mr. Mate's is there, but you know, it illustrates how we hold on to these things for survival and how we act certain ways, right? Because we think it's going to stop us from being thrown away or being, you know, or being not listened to and all this stuff. Sometimes it's reframing the way we look at things. Again, I'm going to read this to you, but I wanted to show you where it's from. The great potluck story in the Bible, right? We're headed towards Thanksgiving, so I thought this might be a good one to share. You know, it's the feeding of the multitudes, the feeding of the thousands. And, you know, the multitudes wanted Jesus, and he's like, okay, you got me, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the boat. I'm going to come here. We're going to do some healing. And then they're all staying. They're all staying. And the apostles are like, you know what, you really got to send them home because everyone's going to get hungry. So you have to send them home. And he's like, I don't think so. I think you can feed them. And they're like, yeah, what? Now think of this. I know we've heard this story a bazillion times. The miracle though, see, if we talk about shadow, the shadow is the sense of lack. I don't have enough to share. I don't have enough. I need everybody to go away so that I know I have enough. I want to make sure you know I'm special. I'm going to stay with you. These people can go away. You're done paying attention to them now because I need taken care of, right? And yet, in cooperation with not only themselves and recognizing that. Now, I would like to think that Jesus understood they were dealing with a big fat shadow of lack there, right? And also a big fat shadow with everybody there saying, I really need something. I need healed. I need to be felt. I need to be loved. I need compassion. It says here that they sat down, they blessed, broke the loaves, and gave it to them. And then they gave it to the multitudes. He showed them how to cooperate and share and how not to buy into their shadow, right? Imagine this. Do you really think these people are walking all that way without something on their bodies? I'm sure they got bread stuffed someplace, or dried meat, or some fruit, a couple apples stuffed in their packages. You know, there's stuff out there. You know, if you brought it out and you shared it with each other, you have the biggest potluck ever happening. Isn't that what happens with a potluck? Everybody brings, you share, you cooperate, and then you end up with so much food, you don't know how you had all that food to begin with, because all you brought was a tiny little dish. That's what it's like. That's what it's like bringing your shadow to the focus, is recognizing how much you have, and not just, and you cooperate with yourself. Like what Cheryl says, you find your wholeness, right? So you're cooperating with all parts of yourself, finding your wholeness, then you have so much more to share, and everybody, and instead of that sense of lack in some way or another, it turns into cooperation. It turns into cooperation. So when people matter and they know they belong, cooperation will be strong. When you tell yourself through the work of healing, and you recognize that you matter to yourself, then that feeling ripples out to others. And then others know that they are also taken care of. And again, it's that ripple of cooperation along with the work. I forgot to bring my pronunciation chart. You guys know me. I had to listen to it like 3. Let's try it. I think it's kinzui. Okay. Kinzui is the art, the Japanese art of taking broken pottery. So if we take what we said over here with Judith Blackstone, that it's fragmented, right? That it's actually fragmented pieces of ourself. And we move it into this idea. In this work, we take the fragmented pieces, the parts that we find that maybe we didn't even know were fragmented off, and we mold them with all the love and the compassion and the caring and the healing that we can offer ourselves in that moment, in that recognition. And in this art, you take gold or bronze, and you remold the pieces, right? And it's a more beautiful piece after you put it back together with all of this and the compassion and love, you know, and you have a whole system here, a whole system of beauty. So, in a nutshell, it's the cleanup work of our lives, right? We've talked about before how we keep growing and we keep moving, but unless we're cleaning, it's really hard to move, you know, into the next spot. My son and his fiance just got a new house, and I said, do you need help deep cleaning that before you move in? Because, you know, you always, something that's there, you clean it out before you move new stuff in, right? So, and that's that uncovering of self. It's integrating little t traumas and big T trauma fragments. That's aligning compassion and wholeness, bringing how we relate our outer and inner worlds into focus. How do we relate to ourselves inside, and how we're relating to things that are happening out there coming at us. We cultivate patience and safety and caring, sharing our true selves, creating that potluck, right? So some of this is foreshadow for us. So as we move in, now Christian's going to be here next week, but as we move into December, we're going to start with that dark and move towards the light, right? So we're going to work with what does it feel like to sit in the darkness, and some activities wrapped around that. And also, because we can't do everything in this kind of segment, right, during a Sunday. Starting in January, after the Sunday gathering, there's going to be several weeks where it's called the Breathe program, and you're all invited to stay for that, where we're going to take a deeper dive into some of these issues and really work with what that means for us. Anybody that would like to participate in extra techniques. There is one technique, though, that I want to share with you, and then I have some little handouts that maybe you want to try between now and that winter light time, or now and when we do burning bowls on January 1st. So I have little notebooks for you all. Hopefully I have enough. And I'm gonna invite you to use it as a gratitude recognition and also an activation recognition. So as we go through the day, what irritated me and what can I be grateful for? What did I notice? So it's this recognition of really paying attention to ourselves and how we're reacting in ourselves and how we're reacting to the outside world. And then we're going to take these things as we move into those other, those other segments and just know, oh my goodness. So, okay, I'll give you an example. We went to concert last night at the Philharmonic, and Andrew, what was the last piece? What was it called?
The man.
Oh,
There you go. So say it again, Andrew.
The man, which means the
Yeah, that's the only part I remember was the ocean piece. So it was really, really beautiful, right? And we're really into it and things are happening, but we're in a live audience, right? We're in a live audience. So about 2 rows back and a couple seats over, somebody's wrist alarm clock wouldn't stop going off. So about every like 60 seconds or so, you'd hear beep, 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 right in the middle of. I was like, okay, first I was like, oh, that poor person, they forgot to turn their thing off. The third time I turned around and I caught myself because I was like, and then I was like, okay, so why is that really bothering me? Why is that really bothering me? You know, you're in a live audience, you know that that's part of the experience, is that really, and here, there's something in me that from a long time ago when I was young, kids needed to sit there through anything and you better not peep or there was a problem, and then when I recognized, oh my goodness, that's what's being activated, I'm just gonna let it go. And it probably went off, I don't know, my son's over there, he can tell you, probably went off like 12 more sinking times, but but to realize that was really what was irritating, that somebody wasn't following the rule that I was like banged into as a little kid, that you don't make noises in those situations and not that whatever. So then it just became, oh, whatever. And you pay attention to what you want to pay attention to. That just became background noise then. So that's what I mean by the activations. So pay attention to that for yourself, write it down. And then if you recognize, what is that really? So like for me, it was being in a situation like that and being told you better, because I jitter. You guys, those of you that know me know that I jitter. So I make noise because I jitter. So that was a thing through the whole time. And then gratitude. What can you be grateful for? Or what is it that you're recognizing gratitude for in the moment? So in gratitude, sometimes I know we've been working on it all year. We're coming to the end. So I'm going to invite Cheryl. Do you want to? Yeah. And so here we go. So if you practice that understanding and just play with that for yourself as a practice. And thank you, Cheryl, for passing those out. And then also to understand that we are in all of this. It's not to beat ourselves up. It's to recognize ourselves more and how we can align with ourselves. So I have a little, give me just a sec. Because everywhere you are, all the time, is a holy place anyway. It's just, who are you really? And do you honor that? And are you recognizing that? So if you'd sit with this for a few minutes, and then when this little meditation is over, Andrew's going to play our special music. It's just going to run right into each other. So we'll have like a sustained bit of contemplation and meditation and music before we join back together.